Hey, just wanted to come on. I had a whole video that I was trying to upload all day yesterday. It was like a 30, hang on. There's a spot on my phone. It was like a 30-minute video and I tried to upload it all day and it would not upload, and then somehow it got deleted. So maybe it was not meant to be watched. Essentially, what it was saying was how we need to rewrite our story. And I consider myself, I would like to consider myself, and I've been told by others that I am practical and pragmatic and grounded. I consider myself pretty spiritual, but I pride myself on grounded spirituality, which I think it's really, really important to be grounded in your spirituality, especially these days with a lot of crazy ideologies and a lot of self-proclaimed gurus. And I think it can be quite alluring. And I think there's an element of deep manipulation involved in that, and a lot of spiritual narcissism, and a ton of it is smoke and mirrors. So again, this is all my opinion. I've been practicing yoga for 24 years. I was very much entrenched in that world. I'm talking, I used to wear the Indian garb, the saris, and my teacher would have gurus flown in from India, and there were people kissing their feet, and they would wash their feet and wash their feet in milk, like very traditional Indian cultural stuff within that framework of yoga and Ayurveda. So if you're like, what the hell is she talking about? That's common, like a milk and honey type of thing. Anyway, so I've run the gamut in many different spiritual circles, manifestation circles, the whole Abraham and Hicks thing, by the way, super toxic and harmful. If you want more information on why I feel that way, I will gladly do a whole nother video on that. But anyway, psychotherapy and somatic practices helped me to move through deep grief and trauma way more than all of that hoopla. So I do caution, I don't tell anybody what to do, because you're going to do whatever you want to do anyway. But I could tell you so many people have left those circles in complete disarray. And I know 3 people who stayed and lived at an ashram, and they were all sexually abused. There was like a shit ton of sexual assault and sexual abuse going on. There's always light and shadow. But what I really wanted to talk about, that was a huge digression. I'm getting a lot of comments, which I love. And thank you so much for commenting. And if you're someone who commented and I didn't get to it, my schedule is very wonky. I mainly work evenings. Some nights I don't get home until very late. And then I'm usually still up at the crack of dawn, especially this week because I'm house and pet sitting. And I'm literally taking care of, I said it in another video, 5 dogs, a cat, 2 ducks, 4 goats, and 26 chickens. I will say the ducks are the most self-sufficient creatures out of all of them. Next would be the cat. So I'm a little tired and having trouble keeping up, being able to answer, because there are other things that I need to take care of during the day. But I'm going to go on and look at the comments after this video. The one thing that I would like to drive home is this is not an all or nothing. When any person is giving stats, I see people, she's way off, or she's being too conservative, or these are completely fictitious. You have to remember, we're going by averages, and statistics are never 100% accurate. Especially when human beings are being interviewed for a statistic, they can under-embellish, over-embellish, fantasize. It's never going to be 100% accurate. I am trying to get to the heart of where Tim sourced these stats from. But if you have Instagram and you look up Tim Biohacker, and I linked it on one of my videos, I believe I did. I will double check that. Go on and you'll find the video and you'll see the stats. And this is, he's like an avid researcher. I've been following Tim for years. I don't follow people who just put out random stuff and then have nothing to back it up, because that does nothing for me. So, but I'm getting a lot of men commenting. I will say, first, let me start by saying this. Thank you. Because most of you are being extremely respectful. You're being very well-intentioned and heartfelt, purposeful in your responses, well thought out things. You're giving me food for thought. You're challenging my thinking, which is a good thing. Some of you are disagreeing, which is totally fine, because we live in a world where, we should be able to disagree like adults, right? And that's okay. So I appreciate all of that. But I know some other people are giving me their experiences and making generalizations. And we don't realize a lot of times when we do things like this, but there is a little bit of like all women are like this. And it's been mainly men making it more like all women this and all women that. And I really want to stay away from that, because we can't confidently say that. All women are not one way and all men are not one way. I mean, that's just fair, right? I mean, that's logical. There's just no way that we can group, one gender into this pot and the other gender into this pot. So I am listening to the full podcast, Diary of a CEO. And I'm going to copy the link in this video. I'm telling you, this is probably one of the best podcasts I've listened to in a really long while. And it's not only about the statistics on death by suicide for boys and men. And a lot of it is centralized around men's health and what's happening with men right now, which I talk about incessantly, because this is an epidemic and we need to take this seriously, because whether certain women want to admit to this or not, we need our men. But men, we also need us women. And they do touch on this in the podcast. And it's articulated really, really well. Like, this is a super intelligent conversation between two men, and one is older, a more lived man with lived experience and real life experience and wisdom, and then one is much younger. I think he's like 31. And I loved getting their thoughts and ideas about things. And there's this idea now from what I refer to as the postmodern feminist that like a man holding a door open for a woman is misogynist. It's misogyny. It's misogynistic. And it drives me batshit crazy. I have to be honest with you. I really don't have patience for it anymore. And that very topic happened to come up in this interview. Another thing that came up is, are men and women different? I say this all the time. We're not the same. Same means equal. We're not the same. Women go crazy over this. The feminist movement was being fought for women's equality in terms of financials. Women did not want to be beholden financially to a man anymore. We wanted to stand on our own 2 feet. I've seen, and it happened to me with my divorce, women be financially annihilated by a man by relying solely on a man for money. Women wanted a voice, and they wanted to have certain choices. They wanted to be able to choose whether or not they wanted to get married or not. They knew there were alternatives. The feminist movement was never saying men and women are the same and there are no gender roles and gender identity doesn't exist. It was not an androgynously based movement. And we're moving towards that, and it's very dangerous. And they talk about this. And I'm like so flipping happy that this actually came up. And what he was saying was how he's very provocative and he pushes out provocative content and then he pisses people off, but he actually referred to himself as thin-skinned. He said that his wife says to him, "You are one of the most provocative, thin-skinned people I've ever met." Like, he can't help but say what he says, but then he gets really upset by the response. And I might have that tendency sometimes, but I think I'm getting better at it because you have a right to feel the way you feel. I don't mind people commenting on my videos and saying, "I completely disagree," or challenging me. "Where did this information come from? Upload the study," or "Are you sure about that? Here's another way to think about it." I deeply appreciate all that. But when I'm being attacked, I'm not okay with that, because I think it lacks emotional intelligence. It lacks, maturity. No one needs to speak to each other that way. It's very, very easy to do that through these channels. Say it to my face. Like, how much harder is that, right? To be that confrontational. But when you're hiding behind a screen, it's like easy peasy. And I have no respect for that. So they touched on all of these things that I've been talking about, and it was so refreshing to talk about. So the younger gentleman said how his girlfriend loves when he opens the door, and that they talked about how they walk on a street or like a sidewalk, and the woman, like, they're on the outside, so as the cars are coming by, the woman is protected. It's a sign of respect. It's not misogyny. No man is saying you're incompetent, you're weak, you can't take care of yourself. They're saying, "I've got your back. I'm keeping you safe because I love you and I'm protecting you." Men need to be needed. It feeds their ego in a really healthy way. It makes them feel validated. A lot of these death by suicides are from men who feel unneeded. And it's in the language of all the notes that were left. They did all of their tactical research, and there were 2 words that were repeated over and over again. They felt unworthy and they felt unneeded. And we know that everybody needs to feel needed. But I think it's a little bit, women are more primed to feel needed because if you have children, you're needed. Women are the innate nurturers, and higher in compassion. It's a generalization, but there are statistics to back that up. I'm not saying men are not nurturing, and I'm not saying men do not know how to be compassionate. I'm saying if you look at the definitive biological traits of men and women, and that's what these men are talking about. There are undeniable differences of what makes a man and what makes a woman, but that's the beautiful thing. That's the beautiful thing the younger gentleman was saying. We can't be the same. Being the same is boring. If we were all the same, what would the world look like? If every tree looked the same, if every flower was the same, if every plant was the same. If there was only goats running around in the world and that was the only animal that existed because they all had to be the same, it's boring. It's not colorful. It lacks vitality. It's not alluring. It's not fun. It's not adventurous. It's not, there's no capacity to expand learning. It's not adventuresome. So the younger gentleman was saying, "I'm super logical." And she's got this sixth sense and this deep intuition. I think what we're moving away from in terms of the old world and that old patriarchal society is the thinking that one was better than the other. I think a lot of men felt like, well, women just need to be logical like us. They're stupid. This intuition thing is stupid. It doesn't hold credence. There's no proof for it, which is no longer true. And if you look at indigenous cultures, a lot of women were elevated and their wisdom and their intuition was sought after. In Native American culture, in a lot of South American culture, this was very, very prevalent. They revered women's intuition and women's wisdom, and the women held counsel. So I think no one is saying that one is better than the other. And you know what, the older gentleman, God, he said something so profound. He said, when him and his wife go out and he holds the door open, he's saying to his wife, you're the boss. You could be the boss and I can still hold the door open for you. So what he's saying is the real intention was the feminist movement was to educate men in ceasing the battle between I'm a man and I'm better than you, and I'm the only one able to elevate to a higher status in a career track and make more money, to I'm going to help you move forward. Like, you're a smart woman, you're gifted and talented, and I'm going to help raise you up. But that doesn't mean they have to stop holding a door open for us. It just means that they can allow us to be an empowered, what it really means to be an empowered feminine, an empowered female, but they can still walk on the outside of the sidewalk to protect us from cars going by in case, God forbid, happens. It's also a reflex in men. The one guy was giving an example of, a mother and father, husband and wife being at a baseball game, and a baseball flies at two kids. The father does what? What do you think the dad did? And what do you think the mom did? The mom ducked, and the father went to go jump in front of the ball to protect the kids. Because that's like a dude role. Now, mama bear is a real thing. And if somebody was coming to attack my kids, I'm gonna do everything I can to protect my kids. But I don't know what I would do. Maybe I would duck if a baseball was coming headed our way. Maybe I wouldn't think to be like, I'm gonna protect the kids. That is a more male-dominated reflex because based on their biology, that's how their brains are wired. I think it's really a turn on. This whole conversation was a turn on for me because it's two men in relationships that really they value one another. The woman is saying, I love your man brain. Thank you for bringing that to the table. There's always going to be things to work on, but I love that you think differently and you see life differently and you bring something different to the table than I do. And then he is reciprocating that to her. And that's what I'm talking about. So when we get into these constant conversations of all men and all women, you're losing the point and you're going to be single and miserable for the rest of your life. And maybe that's what you want and that's your choice. That's not what I want. It's about finding that conscious partner, that conscious aware partner that understands the innate gifts in both sexes, realizes that gender identity and roles are a little bit more defined, and that it has nothing to do with political affiliation. We don't need to make this a conservative thing, an alt-right or an alt-left thing. Screw that. Screw that. Both parties are distracting humanity from functioning at a higher level because you're being drawn into all of this one-way toxic thinking. Move away from it. I encourage you, move away from it. There is a gray area. It doesn't always have to be so black and white. You're talking to a really black and white person who has to work hard to get to that gray area all the time. So there is a gray area here. I am sure I've had very poor experiences with men. And I can sit here and say, all men do this and all men do that because that's my experience, or I can change my story. So I encourage you to rewrite your story, rewire your brain, write a new story out, write it down. The written word is powerful. Stop telling yourself the same story over and over and over again. You're never gonna change your life. You're never going to change your relationships. You're never going to change your circumstances. What do you want your relationships to look like? What are the qualities and the attributes of the person that you want to attract in? And then be realistic and make sure you're a fit for that. I mean, listen, I am not saying this to be an asshole. I'm really not. I have dated guys that they were not super fit and in shape. However, if you want a woman with a rock hard body and you want someone who takes care of herself and is really into health and wellness, and you're 25 over pounds and you can't walk up a flight of stairs without being out of breath and you're eating your McDonald's, you're not setting realistic goals for yourself. So make sure that what you're trying to call in, you're an energetic match for that, because you have to bring that to the table. You have to bring forth to the table what you're asking in return. You can't just be some like overweight slob, some, unskilled, unintelligent person, and then want some like high achiever. Why? So you can turn out feeling bad about yourself? Because that's what's going to happen. If you think that's going to fill your ego, it's going to be short term, because that stuff needs to come from within you. This is where people look to an outside partner to fix their internal world. You have to do that shit yourself. Get yourself right, and then the real person will come in. But write it all down and tell yourself a new story. Take the word all and should out of your vocabulary. Just try it for a day and see what happens. It's hard. It's hard. Because we very much think people should do this and my life should look like that and it should be this way. Try not to use the word for one day and get rid of the word all, because all women are not one way and all men are not one way. And if you are experiencing the same thing over and over again, you are the common denominator. And it's a really, really hard thing to sit with. It's a really, and I've done it. You have to do the work. Why am I attracting this same situation? Why am I attracting this same personality? What is going on within me? How can I change my story? How can I change my energy to be a better match to a really good situation, person, circumstance, whatever it is that you're seeking? That is more pragmatic manifestation than all the hoo-ha out there. Anyway, I hope that this made sense to you in some capacity and helped you. Thank you again for all your comments. I really love how many men are jumping in. I think these are vital conversations to have. There are a lot of wounded people out there, and I don't say that tongue in cheek, because I was super, super wounded for way too long of a time, licking my wounds. And I promise you that there is a way out. And, I was really hurt. I mean, I was like broken down, beaten and battered, and never thought I was ever going to come up out of it, and even contemplated taking my life, because that's how bad it got. But we know that that's never the answer. My tattoo, You Matter, it's probably easier that way, for suicide prevention and awareness. And they do touch a lot on death by suicide in this video. So just as a little trigger warning for people who have intimate experience with that, because that is a devastation. That is just, an unimaginable devastation for any person or family to go through. Love ya.